Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on USBN Sports and a Big Guy Sports podcast. And as always, I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, got a guy here that played basketball over at Turpin High School and continued his career at a school that you know very well at UC Clermont. And not just a heck of a ball player, but also a heck of a person, and Scott Nelson.
I'm really excited about this one, Danny, because Scott's a great guy. Everybody likes Scott. He was a great player. I would have loved to have played with him, coached him, all the above. I wish he still has some eligibility for Clermont.
No kid. So joining us, as we said, is former Turpin High School and UC Clermont star. And I've actually number good enough at UC Clermont. He's got his number hanging in the rafters at UC Clermont in the Cougar Dome. And Scott, thanks for joining us.
That's good to be with you guys. Good to see your smiling faces, and what a fun way to finish up the year. Thanks for having me. Yeah, let's have some fun.
Yeah, that's awesome, and we appreciate you joining us. So let's go back to the youth, and I'm not sure myself. I mean, did you grow up in Anderson, and what was like, living in Anderson if you did growing up in Anderson?
Yeah. I moved here when I was 7 years old. Grew up like right by the Mercy Hospital, and went to Sherwood, and then Nagel wasn't a thing, so straight to Turpin in seventh grade. Turpin and Anderson were both 7 through 12 then, so that was always a funny thing to look back on, because I hear about these class capacity restraints and things like that. And I'm like, we had 2 more grades in these buildings when I was there. Like, it somehow worked. You didn't want to run into a senior when you were in 7th grade in the halls. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
But no, it was cool. Yeah. So I've been here, and then decided to, obviously stay put here with my family and stuff. I couldn't love this community anymore. And, it's a special place for a lot of reasons. And as you get older, you get more perspective on that, and seeing the people that impact the community year after year. And then you see it, like a snowball compound, like people that grew up here start doing it. And there's seeing the cross pollination from Turpin and Anderson as you get older too is really cool. Like, being buddies with Marcus Thompson, Kevin Snyder, Zach McCormick being the best to ever do it at Turpin, and then now being, in the AD role at Anderson, like good friends with Frank and like Steve. Steve was, I'll talk about this some more, but the special thing about Anderson to me is that when I look back on my youth, I played Kiwanis, for example, and it was at Anderson, right? And I remember just Coach Bartholomew, and like just the positive impact that the way that they treated us as fifth and sixth graders. I just remember it, and they're just great people, and that's the people make this community extremely special.
Absolutely.
Wow. So Scott, when you were growing up, what was the sports besides obviously basketball that you played?
I was a baseball kid for sure, and then basketball, and I played soccer for a couple of years. I was really fast, but not that great. So I opted out of that. And then freshman year, my mom tells a funny story. Freshman year, I came home and said, I'm playing golf. And she was like, what are you talking about? I thought you were going to play soccer. Because I played on a really high level soccer team that was really good. And I was like, I'm going to play golf. So I played golf for 4 years at Turpin too.
Really?
And got a chance to play with Andy Sanders. Like, I mean,
Wow.
I don't know if you know that name, but like, I have great stories about Andy from the perspective. He was my next door neighbor, and I had no idea he was that good. I knew he was awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like, he shot 33, 34, 32 every 9 holes, but he was off and gone by the time I teed off, and then pretty much gone. And there was no rivals. There was no 24/7 composites. Like, he was like one of the best high school golfers in the country.
Yeah.
And we just didn't know that. And then, so as I got older and watched him, like I turned on the US Open one year, and he's like in the US Open, like in 2000 or something. I was like, calling Jeff D'Angelo, like, Sanders is in the US Open. And, he would have made the tour, no doubt, had he not come down with MS. So
wow.
That's just a story about like how life was just different in those years. And
yeah.
Dan, you were talking about stats. It was so different. Like, there wasn't, you didn't get a printout at halftime of everybody's stats. It was like, Tony, I think you had a couple baskets, and Billy, I think you had a couple fouls. You guys remember those years?
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. It's a lot different.
So when did basketball become your love and desire?
Yeah, pretty quick. I mean, like, I was I was a really good baseball player. Fast, big arm, all that, but basketball just took my heart pretty quick, like fourth grade. So Kiwanis was what we had. That was it. AAU wasn't really a thing until like the end of my high school period, like 97, 98. Like
Right.
not everybody played AAU like they do now. So, I laugh with my mom about it. Like, she's like, you would have played anywhere, anytime, the year-round stuff. I would have loved that, but
Right.
mostly it was in the driveway and then playing for the school. That was it.
Yeah. So when you got to Turpin, and obviously you were there for 7th grade all the way up through there, talk a little bit about playing at Turpin and the guys you played with and the experience there, and obviously the coaches that you played for.
Sure. So my group of buddies, there was like 4 of us that were extremely close, best friends, and like that's Mick Shea, Randy Limes, Jeff D'Angelo, and me. And we, as we came in as freshmen, that was when Woodward and Taft were in the league.
Yes.
As you remember, Steve. And like, So seventh grade, I remember watching Damon Flint throw alley-oops to Eric Johnson.
Yep.
Yes.
And just, like we're playing the best teams in the city in our league.
Right.
So
right.
Extremely challenging from a 14-year-old, 130-pound, suburb kids, right? But by the time it was really cool, because by the time we became, I played for John Metter was my freshman coach, and Metter was awesome. Like, he let us play. He's definitely a player's coach, and like we have great memories to this day. I think we were 12-4 or something like that on our freshman team, and JV experience was fine. Junior year, I played for Mike Center was our coach, and then he retired after my junior year when his son graduated, and Tim Edmonds came in from Moeller. He was 27. He was an assistant for Carl at Moeller, and that experience was interesting, surprising as a senior to get a new coach, I guess. But like, I fell in love with Tim and what he was teaching us. I can't say right away because it was different. It was intense. It was all fundamentals. I specifically remember a summer mini camp going into senior year, 3-day mini camp, where I think we did nothing but like pivots, rips, pass fakes, and conditioning. And like, when we were like, dude, when are we going to play basketball?
Right.
And so he was transformational for me to having a great, change the trajectory of my performance.
Yeah.
And then has been a guy that I realized, when he told me this is how they're doing it at Moeller, I'm like, all right, well, I believe you. Obviously they're great. You think it's just the players, right? They just have great players. No,
right.
It's what they're doing and how they're doing it in the culture. Yeah. So Tim is kind of my first idol, man. He changed my life.
Yeah. It's too bad he didn't stick around at Turpin.
Big time. Yeah. It was a disappointing exit after a couple of years.
Yeah. He's a really good coach. So, some of the games, obviously, you played against some really good players at Turpin, and you had on some really good teams as well. But you also obviously talk about the rivalry with Anderson and how that perspective was, because we know it from the Anderson side. Talk a little bit about how on the Turpin side how that rivalry was for you.
Let's see. So, I'll just start with like Matt Sinkovich was in my class at Anderson, right? Phil's son, and Matt was a baller. Like, he could score it from everywhere. So, I'll start with, I guess, perspective on that. When he was a sophomore, I think he started varsity for those great Anderson teams.
Right.
Maybe even played a little bit as a freshman. Freshman, I'm not sure. I can't remember. Maybe a little bit. So I was always admiring the fact that he was on varsity and I wasn't there yet as a sophomore. And as a junior, I played some. So Anderson, my junior year, was awesome. That was the 17-3 team or something with, Big Adam. And then I think Shane Klein was still there. I think Shane was 97. Yep. Shane was a point guard. Shane was a point guard that I really loved his game. And I became buddies through Chad Lawson later on.
Yeah.
Got to know Shane a little bit more after he went to Spring Hill College in Alabama and stuff like that. But we got our ass kicked. Like I remember being in that game, and I think Adam shooting free throws in the fourth quarter or something at Turpin, and it's like you look up and we're down like 30, 35 or something, and it's like, I don't love this. Like, you guys are good, but like it shouldn't be a 30-point game in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then senior year, those guys left. Pete Corey and Matt were kind of the lead players for Anderson that year.
Right.
And we got them twice. So we left with 2 wins our senior year, which felt good.
Well, obviously with the wins and losses, how was that atmosphere? What was that like? I mean, because I just remember, obviously we're older than you, but I just remember looking so forward to those games, and you knew it was going to be a packed house and everything, and how fun that was.
Yeah, like hot. The gym's like, you can feel the humidity in the air of the gym. At Turpin especially, you get the people around the top. Every basket is like, that's pretty much 99% of kids, that's going to be the last time in their life that they're going to score a basket and hear 2,000 or 3,000 people cheer.
Correct.
So yeah, the atmosphere is really unmatched. Hopefully we can get back to those atmospheres, soon, because there's nothing more special as a kid than running out and playing in that game in this community.
You got that right. Yeah.
Totally agree. I've sat there and think about this all the time when we talk with guys that we're friends with that went to Turpin and Anderson, and back. And Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Phil, when he originally came to Anderson, he was told that it was going to be one high school.
Yeah.
He was going to be the head coach of whatever high school was going to be called at the time, and it was going to be Forest Hills High School. And I always sit there and think about that, like all these great teams that both Anderson and Turpin either had at one time. I cannot even imagine what sports would be like if we had one combined high school. I mean, the athletes at both schools are just phenomenal. I mean, what do you think, Scott? I mean, I just think it's just amazing that what it could. I mean, I'm not, just imagine what.
There's no doubt from a top end, being an adult now and looking back on it and having different perspective on everything. Like, we didn't have a chance to win the league really when I was at Turf. Like, we were just getting dominated by Damon Flint and Woodward Craft. Like, we weren't gonna beat them in basketball. Once they left, West High and Oak Hills came in. But pretty much every year, like when you look at the pendulum swings in our community, right? The talent kind of usually swings one way to another, just kind of like it just seems to, right? I was coaching at Turpin in 2002 and 3 when it was Patswald, Marcus, and Chris. Is it Chris Norwell?
Yep.
Right. And that, we were terrible. Like, God love those kids. We didn't have a kid that could make a basket on the varsity at Turpin that year. Like, we struggled to score in any game. And then we roll out that Anderson game and it's Marcus, Pats, Norwell. And it's just like, dang, they got so you have like dramatic feast or famine years.
Right.
But for the most part in the basketball, I think for most part, there's usually 2 or 3 on each team that are like, dang, that kid's, maybe there's one that's a phenomenal guy like a Matt Sinkovich. But if you paired them up, boy, you would have some top end competitive Division I teams. There's no doubt about it.
I'm telling you, man, it is amazing. So talk about that. You're having your senior year, having a good year, and then the thought of college was that going into your mind, and then what was that recruiting process like for you then?
God, man, it makes me laugh to think about it. I had a shoebox full of letters, I guess, inquiries, and you'd open them up and you had to fill it out yourself and like send back tape. So you'd be, trying to, I had a lot of tape. My dad taped every game, but like, you'd be thinking about, do I have to go copy a tape? Like, nobody's creating a highlight reel for you. Like, there's no huddle. So mostly I got like pile of stuff, didn't know who any of these schools were. Some of them were good NAIA schools. I famously remember getting one from Emory in Atlanta, just a fantastic school. And I just was like, who's Emory? And like threw it in the box. Like,
right.
No, I have no idea how interested Emory was in me, but they sent me a letter. Right. And so I kind of go through the process, and my dad was a tenured professor at University of Cincinnati. And so I went to school for free. My sister was already in the nursing school there, so we got free tuition.
Nice.
So I can still hear my mom saying, "You can go anywhere you want. You can chase your basketball dreams if you want, but you can go to UC for free. You'll thank me someday. Like you'll be glad someday, right?" So I was playing in the East-West All-Star game. I don't know that I'd even been given it that much thought. That's how different of a time it was. Like, I wasn't worried. I don't know. I wasn't worried about it. And then Phil came up and said, "Hey, you can still go to UC in the business school and do what you want to do in the, business degree down there. You only have to take 7 credit hours at Clermont at that time to play. So I was like, oh, okay, I can still play ball and still go to college for free. Like, I'll do that.
Sure.
And so I kind of fell into it just because it all worked. I didn't have the dream of probably going to smaller D3 somewhere and paying a bunch of money and doing that. So God's plan, man. Like I didn't know what I wanted or what I was going to do. And like, I look back on it now and it was like guiding path, taking me in a direction that, and from a basketball perspective, took me to places that relationships with people that I couldn't imagine not having at this point in my life. And then,
right.
From I never thought my jersey would be hanging up in a college gym.
Right.
Like I didn't really play as a junior in high school. I didn't really play that much. Like I played a little bit, but it just, the path didn't look like that. So it's like, God's plan took care of it, and it turned out kind of wild.
Absolutely.
So you moved on to Clermont, and which was much different than it is now. And you were one of the guys that kind of paved the way for the current team and where they play now, because it's so different where you guys practiced, where you played. So talk a little bit about that. And you played for Phil Sinkovich, who was my basketball coach, Danny's basketball coach when we were in high school. So talk a little bit about Phil and the experience of playing for Phil and the practices. And you guys, I think you have to go down and practice down at UC a lot, and how all that was.
Yeah. Oh man, it was neat. So the first thing about knowing about that time, there were some guys that set the table before me for sure. Those early 90s teams, and then like the mid 90s, you had some really great teams with Scott Lee, Jeff Click were the names I heard, and then Chad Lawson. And then when I got there was a point guard from Woodward, Angelo Carr, who was phenomenal. Sean Hawkins was playing in a couple years already from Woodward. And then Chad Lawson, who's like my hero, my human friend hero. Like I remember the first open gym, he put me under his arm and he's like, "Hey, you're good. You're with me. Like, do your thing." And like, he just shot me full of confidence. Cause I was kind of like, I don't know, college, like these dudes are big. I don't know if I'm any good. I don't know if I'm good enough for this, I guess.
Right.
And from there, like him and Phil both just kind of freed me up to just continue developing and like probably trusting my skills. I mean, I played basketball more than the sun was up, and they just kind of fed into it. And then physically, I finally got to a point physically where, I was ready to go. We practiced at UC. So that was great experience because the Cats went 3 to 6 and then we go 6 to 8 every night.
Wow.
So we get there at 5:30, sit down at the scorer's table and just see all kinds of stuff.
Cool.
I mean, like, I was blown away from I don't know what I thought a D1 practice of the Bearcats would be like, but sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less, sometimes it was different than I was expecting to see. Let's just put it that way, right? Like,
yeah.
I remember, the night after they lost in UNC Charlotte, like crazy game, and just the practice the next day was just something that I didn't know human beings could endure. That kind of.
I bet.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow.
It was from an experience standpoint, we loved it. Like we didn't have a gym, and like looking back on it, it wasn't awesome, but we also got that other kind of benefit or experience that, the guys now don't get, not that your experience is any different or worse now. It's great that they have a place to call home. But it was just at that time, that's what it was. And that's what made Clermont, I think, was just the grittiness of, you don't take yourself too seriously, but you better love the game. Like I say, don't take yourself too seriously. Like no ego was going to stand up in a Clermont locker room in the mid 90s to early 2000s. Like if you had an ego and you wanted to be this guy or that guy, we had some kids that would come in like that. Within 2 weeks, they were gone. And it
still the same way now.
It was all about, it was just, that doesn't fly. So, and we didn't have to do anything to make it not fly. It was just that Chad Lawson, Angelo, Hawk, like it just worked for a certain kind of kid. You know what I mean? And loving the game to like the nth degree and doing anything to play. That's what I think has sustained the Clermont program, because it's not funding or a huge arena, and all those kind of things. Like, so it's just pure love.
That's the diamond in the rough. You're trying to find guys like you, and you were fortunate to play there for 4 years, which if you know anything about playing at this level, it's kind of rare. But you're able to stay healthy. I'm guessing for the most part, and played on some really good teams. You won over 89 games, and you scored over 2,000 points, which is incredible. And playing for Phil and winning a lot of games is something that's probably not just rare, but probably may not happen too much anymore. I mean, I can probably think of only a handful of guys that could even come close to approaching those type of numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it was new to me. Like, I didn't come from like Moeller or something. So like we I think we went about 22-10 every year I was there. It felt like almost the same record. We played in a couple really challenging preseason tournaments every year where we'd go play, Cincinnati State when they were in elite JUCO, and like,
right.
Played St. Catherine's in Lexington, Kentucky one year when I remember they had 2 7-footers. I was just like, okay, I was like, cool. And then we kind of get to our league, and like Hamilton and Middletown were always really, really skilled and talented. So we were always 1 or 2 in the league, I think all 4 years that we were there. So yeah, I mean, we got a lot of wins. Like, winning is fun. It was a new experience, but looking back on it, to win 20 games for 4 years and do it with it's all about the people you do it with. So it kind of comes back to that central thing. We just had so much fun.
Yeah. So a question I have for you, Scott, is, a lot of times, unfortunately, life kind of gets in the way, and you were fortunate to play there for 4 years. Was there any point in time over those 4 years that you thought, okay, between, school and, college life and playing basketball, it's challenging, and you got to have that love in your heart to play. So was there ever a thought that maybe you couldn't do it?
100%. After my second year, I wanted to walk on at UC and just go to main. Go ahead. And just go to main campus and just I wanted to walk on. I wanted to be on the Bearcats.
Yep.
And so Cinco had a little conversation with Dan Peters, who was the assistant coach.
Yep.
And the word we got back was the experience the year before with a couple of walk-ons he was not happy about it. And something wasn't right in the water. That's pretty much all Cinco said. And he just said, not happening. And I was bummed. Like, I was crushed because I think I had already scored 1,000 points. I'm like, I could be a walk-on, for God's sakes, But it didn't work out. Again, God's plan. I wanted it bad, didn't work out. So I just came back and played again. And then going into my senior year, I was definitely getting finish my degree, senioritis, all that stuff, where I was like, I don't know. And Cinco, Brian McMonigal and I were talking, like, you coming back? He's like, yeah, I think so. So Brian was my post guy that was just Brian, complete monster on the court. I mean, like, if Brian had been 6'9", he would have made money playing basketball for a long time, maybe even shorter than that. I mean, he's 6'4.5", the best hands you've ever seen, can score. I mean, he would score on guys 6'7", 6'8". He'd drop 25 on them before they could blink because of his one is, just his skill with the ball. Right. And then also just how much he ran the court. But so, yeah, twice. After my sophomore year, I wanted to walk on at UC and didn't work out. And then going into my last year, I was just thinking, do I want to grind this out one more year? And then me and McMonigal kind of looked at each other and decided to do it. So I'm glad I did. But I think that's part of the evolution as kids from 18 to 22 is they become different dudes and different things are going on. Yeah. I would encourage them to, one day they'll be 41 and thinking maybe I should have played 1 or 2 more years.
Yeah. Well, look what it got you. I mean, the friendships that you got, but also you're in the Clermont Hall of Fame, and you got your jersey up in the rafters that nobody will ever wear number 3 again. And it's just a great honor. I mean, I was there the day that you got your jersey retired, and it's just a very cool and special thing, I'm sure, for you and your family. And you could always look back on that and on not just what a great decision, but what a fun experience you had. Yeah,
man. It's an experience that I never would have forecasted, and it's all due to the people that took me there. Phil, teammates, like just never would have guessed it, brother. But
Yeah.
It was Clermont's definitely one of the linchpin foundational things that is great to look back on and say, wow, what a great experience. Couldn't have gone any better than how it went. But you never know where life's going to take you, and I think that was somewhat indicative of the time period, right? I think now I see so many people trying to figure so many things out at such young ages, even in youth sports, like he's this, she's that. I want to get him to this. It's like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, I guess, like the desire, but sometimes just got to lay back and kind of see where the world takes you.
You got that right.
Yeah. And speaking of that, kind of after the basketball at UC Clermont, you had a transition and go on, and you ended up going on and coaching high school basketball. And talk a bit about that transition for you as being a player to the coach side of it.
Yeah, my last year at Clermont, my senior year, I was the varsity assistant at Turpin the same year, and going to school. I have no idea what I was doing or how that worked.
That's crazy.
I don't even know. But Jerry Cousins was the head coach. He reached out to me, and I was like, yeah, I can do it. Like going to school full time, playing at Clermont, and coaching the Turpin so I know I didn't make practice very much those years. Like I know I missed a lot of 2:30 practices or something. I don't really know what happened. And then the next year, so I was at Turpin for 2 years, and then
Honesty.
I took a break, a 1 year break, I think. And then John Hurley called and said, do you want to coach with me at Clermont? So 05 and 06, I was an assistant at Clermont. And that was super fun. Like coaching was something that I immediately felt like what Tim Edmonds did for me from a fundamental standpoint. I realized, okay, this is applicable to every player. And I want to see my community be great. I want to see Turpin be great. And then I tried to take it to Clermont, and we had a team that won it all in 2005 or 6. Can't remember which year, but a phenomenal Clermont team with like Josh Harden, Michael Holmes, who went by Bruiser. Bruiser's now coaching like a youth organization in the community called 4D. Matt Firestone was on one of those teams. Troy Gertie was a little bit back, but he was still playing. Yeah, so like really, really good Clermont teams. And then ended up at Glen Estee for 8 years with Dave Caldwell. He just knew him from the Y, and he said, hey, you want to do this with me? I'm like, all right, yeah, let's keep this going. And then back to Turpin when Josh Slonim called, got the job. And so coaching is like this cool community, as you guys know, of just mostly awesome dudes that just want to impact kids the right way and win some games along the way. But it's really not the purpose. It's not the calling for it. And so I just hung it up at Turpin last year to coach my kids.
Well, yeah. Speaking of impact, I mean, you're coaching your son now, which is very cool. And I saw you guys just won a tournament.
Yeah, I'm coaching the 3rd grade Titans. Definitely want to plug the Titans because Ray Geerding founding the Titans program, and then Kevin Snyder is just like the engine behind it. The vision for Titans, which couldn't speak to me anymore, being a kid that grew up here and would have killed to play basketball like a million hours a day, right? Is to teach our kids in our community the game the right way from the youth level up, so that we're impacting the middle school and the high schools with players that are as good as they can be at those ages. So we're super passionate about it. We have we've got a coaching staff, like John Meeker runs our skills and drills.
Awesome.
Kevin's we've got coaches that, mostly played in college, almost at every level.
Yeah.
And it's a cool thing to know that the kids in our community have that opportunity, and that hopefully we're putting them in great position to be as good as they can be when they get a little bit older.
Do you think that the transit? I mean, what do you think is the biggest difference besides the AAU between the kids when we were playing and what they are now? I mean, and Steve too, you both probably can answer this question. Are they harder to coach, easier to coach? I mean, you just see, anymore now, kids say, you know what, I don't like it, I'm transferring. Transfer portal. You're seeing it like crazy right now with everything that's going on. What do you think, Scott, do you think is the difference between back when we played and back in kids now?
Oh man, certainly more, you were more isolated back then, right? So you didn't have the opportunity to expose yourself to a whole bunch, whether it's the rest of the city or the country, whatever it is. Like, that wasn't really possible. So good or bad, maybe you needed more exposure, and more exposure would have gotten you in a different place. Okay, great, didn't really exist. But also the voices and the amount of people that can impact you or tell you this is a good idea. Back then it was probably pretty much, your parents and your coach, and I also remember, I mean, if you wanted to talk to your coach about something, like whether it was skill development or whatever, I mean, you pretty much had to pick up the landline phone and call your coach. Right. Or have a face-to-face meeting with them. There was no keyboard warriors firing emails after a game or social media or whatever. That's just one difference. Other than that, I don't know how different it is. I think kids are generally the same. If you have, like when you look at UC football, the culture is everything. Right. So if you get the culture, we over me, I think you have a chance to have those, those kind of special teams that you always look back on and say, man, that team was fun. But it's definitely different with social media. That's just a topic that you could have a whole podcast on social media. So
absolutely, no
doubt. Steve, what do you feel?
Well, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Part of the things that, coaching all these years is just trying to pull the kids that have that drive like you had. A lot of kids, they want it, but they don't know how or don't want to work for it. And it's rare to find those type of players, whether you're coaching high school or college. And, because some kids, like a lot of things, unfortunately, in today's society is a little more entitlement. And so, finding the kids that to really willing to work for it and then feeling good about it, the results is the rewarding part. And just trying to get them there and trying to get them to understand that is one of the trying things as a coach, I think. What do you think?
I think you kind of speak into like delayed gratification, right? Are you the immediacy of results, or I didn't start this game, I'm leaving, I didn't get enough shots, pouting, whatever it is. For myself, I think I can look back on it and realize that I was a lot more special from a mentality standpoint than I thought I was. I just loved the game and I didn't know any better. But what you're saying is now we all realize like me, Zach McCormick, guys that love the game and just eat it and want to play it all day. That's not the norm. And that's why Zach is who he is. And that's why, Adam Norwell is who he was, and Matt Sinkovich. So no, you're never probably going to get 12 of those on a team. Right. Or you'd be hanging a banner.
Well, here I'll take it on the flip side. You both played college basketball. I did not. I was a bench warmer, but I loved sports. I love being around the guys. I love being with my teammates. And there's something to be said for guys like me. Like I wanted to play, obviously, but I didn't. But I cared about my teammates, and I think that's important to have some guys on a team like that too as well. That's just
like Billy McCain for me was like that guy that, like,
great example.
He was on the Billy was just, he loved it more than anybody, and if he could have gone to the NBA and played, he would have, right? And he ended up playing a whole bunch one more year after a couple of us graduated, after Cinco stopped and Joe Moon took over. Like Billy started and got to get a whole bunch of playing time. But you're 100% right, Dan, because we never had any garbage at the end of the bench, so to speak, like distracting or whatever. It was Andy Hollenbeck and like Billy, and then they got their chance to like play a whole bunch at the end of their last year. It was like the senior year, they earned it and they played a whole bunch and they had a great experience, I'm sure. But those first 3 years, when they didn't get to play as much, it was just the love of the game. I mean, they're coming into practice killing themselves, knowing that they weren't going to get a ton of clock. So that, there's no doubt, that is a glue to a program, and that is a catapult for teams.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're gonna try to wrap this up here real quick, and we always try to end with kind of a little special thing we do is we always try to ask. I probably should have told you about this before to not kind of put you on the spot, but like your favorite your memories of as a high school player, as a college player, and then maybe as a coach. We'll start off with your
as a best memories as a high school player. Let's see. I hit a game winner my junior year against Northwest, second game of the year. They were good.
Nice.
Jay Walther was there a good player? Remember him, Steve?
Sure. Oh yeah.
They had a guy. I mean, he probably averaged 25, 28 a game or something. He was phenomenal. So we're clock winding down. I'm supposed to do something with the ball. I looked both ways. I didn't like either option. Pulled up for three at the top of the key, banked it in, win by one.
Nice.
That was junior year. That was cool. And then senior year, like we ended up losing to Roger Bacon in the sectional final. I was telling you that about Dan. My last game was to Eugene Land and Brandon McIntosh. And then they had Brian Lakes and Brandon Schaefer, who I think both went to NKU.
Yeah.
So two NKUs, a Xavier and a UC on that Bacon team. They were phenomenal. We played them real tough for a half, and then they took over in the second half. But the game before that, I fouled out. It was at Anderson. We're playing Goshen tournament game. I fouled out. Horrible call. Let's not get into that. But I was losing my mind. I'm like, I fouled out. We're going to lose to Goshen. This is going to be it. And they call a foul on a Goshen kid with 0.6 left, tie game. Oh. He misses the first, makes the second. We're down by 1, 0.6 left. This is Tim Edmonds, man. We have a 1 second play.
Yeah.
Our quarterback, ball's bouncing. Joe Dole picks it up. Our Mick Shea, my really good friend, is our center, gets on the opposite foul line. Joe casually takes it out, throws it all the way down the court. Their guy jumps, goes right over his head. He misses it. Mick catches it, gets hit in the back of the head, lays it in, and gets fouled at the buzzer, and we win.
No
way. The most I'll have to send you the clip, but
that's awesome.
And that was with 0.6. So that's the game that we win to go play Bacon. But just when I look back on it, it was all about preparation. We ran that play every day in practice.
Yeah.
And then they, so that memory will stand out to me as finishing my high school career as best we could have, winning that game and then no shame and losing to Bacon.
Right. Right.
That's really
about the college
experience. College.
Oh man, there's some good ones. There's like a whole bunch in like the fun side of like the team and like road trips and like stuff like that. College is probably, man, we lost the heartbreaker our junior year. We were up 5 in the title game and like a couple baskets, just lost by a couple. But I think it was that same year at Indiana Tech's invitational tournament. They were a power NAIA, right? Like maybe top 5, top 10. Like we didn't really know, but we knew they were darn good. So we go in the gym and you look at them and you're like, okay, yeah, like this is going to be tough. And we beat Indiana Tech on their court in the championship, maybe by 10 or 11, and kind of stole the trophy off their court and,
That's
had
awesome.
a great bus ride home. But I think Phil probably still remembers that tournament as one where, we went in there and smacked them. We also beat a Division II team my junior year at a tournament in Salem Takeo University in like West Virginia, something like that.
Yep.
We beat Division II Concord College. So like, wasn't like it was on the front page of the paper or anything, but we knocked off a D2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
those are fun memories.
That's some awesome memories, and it's really cool that we can it all comes full circle between all of us. We're, Steve's coaching at UC Clermont. You're, Rafters are retired up there, and I'm just like you said, that little bench warmer that's announcing the games now that goes a little crazy because I show my excitement for the game. But we really appreciate it. Scott, I know you're super, super slammed and busy with the holidays and everything, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. It was great hearing your stories and catching up.
Sure. I hope I've had fun following along on the weekly podcast, and I hope all it does is drip a little bit of pride of the Anderson community across social media that as people grow up and just realize how special it is to live here and grow relationships with people in this community, because it's a really cool place.
Absolutely.
You got it.
Agree. So we really appreciate it. So we're going to wrap it up here. So for Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Scott Nelson, you've been listening to This Week in Anderson podcast. We'll catch you next week.